Okafor and Nina were the kind of couple everyone talked about. Their love journey had begun since university days. Their love wasn't the loud kind, but it was the kind that made you notice. It was simple but strong. Friends admired them, and some even envied them. See love, oh, some would say, shaking their heads as the two walked past, always laughing and chatting like there was no one else in the world. When Okafor and Nina finally got married, their wedding was the talk of the town. The entire village turned up, dressed in vibrant ashobi, ready to celebrate their love with them. Elders raised cups of palm wine in prayers for a fruitful marriage. Your children will surround your table, they declared confidently. Nina blushed and Okafor smiled, squeezing her hand as if to say this is our beginning. But as the years rolled by, those prayers began to feel like whispers from a distant past. By their 10th anniversary, the silence in their home had grown louder. No cries of a baby, no tiny feet running across the tiled floor, just the ticking of the wall clock and the occasional hum of a ceiling fan. Nina would always look through her window all the time, watching her neighbors' kids as they play outside, with tears streaming down her face. "Okafor, why me?" she would whisper. "We got married before Gimmick and her husband, but now they have their third child," she said. "Nne, don't cry," her husband would say softly, brushing her tears away. "It's God's time, not ours. Our child will come when he says it's time. Let's keep believing." But it wasn't just their prayers that went unanswered that tested them. Okafor's mother made it no secret that she blamed Nina. "Okafor, send that man you call a wife away and marry someone who can bear you children," she said one cool evening, her voice sharp like a knife. But Okafor stood his ground. "Mama, God gives children, not man. I will not leave my wife." But his words only angered his mother. Despite the hurtful comments and the pressure from his mother, Okafor stayed by Nina's side. He loved his wife, and not even their childlessness could change that. Life wasn't easy for Nina during those childless years, especially with her mother-in-law breathing down her neck every chance she got. Okafor's mother, popularly known as Mama Nkechi, wasn't the type to hide her thoughts. She believes a woman's worth was tied to the children she could bear. Okafor was her only son, and Nina's empty womb was a thorn on her side. "You are eating my son's food and wasting his time," Mama Nkechi would hiss whenever she came over. "Barren woman, if you can't give me grandchildren, pack your things and leave. Let my son marry someone who can." Those words hit Nina like daggers every time. She would always try to act strong while Mama Nkechi was around. But as soon as she left, Nina would break down. Late at night was worse. When the house was silent, she would lie on her bed and cry out her eyes. But Okafor would always wake up, wrap his hands around her, and whisper words of comfort. "Nne, don't mind Mama," he would say gently, kissing her forehead. "God will give us our own children in his own time. Don't let her words break you. I love you, and that's what matters." But Mama Nkechi didn't stop. She continued troubling Okafor. "Okafor, if you keep waiting, you will grow old without children. Your uncle and his children will inherit all your father's properties. Send her away and find a woman who can give you what you need," she insisted, her tone sharp and commanding. But Okafor refused to give in. "Mama, I married Nina because I love her, not because of children. God gives children, not man, and when it is time, we will have ours," Okafor said to his mother firmly. One quiet morning, Nina woke up feeling different. Her mother-in-law had left the house the day before after raining insults and abuses on her. There was a strange heaviness in her body, a wave of dizziness that made her hold onto the bedpost for balance. "Okafor," she called out weakly, her voice barely above a whisper. Okafor quickly rushed to her side, with worry and fear written all over his face. "What's wrong, Nne? Are you okay?" She shook her head, pressing a hand to her forehead. "I don't know. I just feel off." Okafor didn't waste any time. He helped her get dressed and drove her straight to the hospital. As they sat in the waiting room, his heart raised. Nina looked nervous. When the doctor finally called them in, the words that followed changed their lives forever. "Congratulations, Mrs. Okafor, you are pregnant," the doctor said. For a moment, neither of them could speak. Nina's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes welling up with tears. "Pregnant?" she whispered, almost as if she couldn't believe it. Okafor was overwhelmed with emotion. He pulled her into a tight hug. "Nini, did you hear that? God has finally answered our prayers," he shouted in joy. "What they have waited for all their life is finally here." The months that followed were filled with joy and anticipation. Nina glowed with happiness as her belly grew, and Okafor was by her side every step of the way. He pampered her like never before, from cooking her favorite meals and making sure she got plenty of rest. When the day finally came, Nina gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The joy in the room was indescribable that day. They named him Obinna because he was truly the answer to their deepest prayers. And as they held their son for the first time, tears streamed down Nina's face. "Our miracle," she whispered as she held Obinna tightly. Okafor smiled. His heart was full. He is finally a father after what seemed like forever. Their long wait was over, and their home was finally filled with the sound of a baby's laughter. From the moment Obinna came into their lives, he became the center of Okafor and Nina's world. He was their miracle, their answered prayer, and they loved him with everything they had. Nina doted on him endlessly, giving him anything he wanted, sometimes even before he asked. "Anything for Obim," she would say with a smile. Okafor wasn't much different. He would return from work with toys and gifts for Obinna. And it didn't take long for Obinna to realize just how much power he held in their home. If he wanted something, all he had to do was ask, and it would appear. Nina in particular could never say no to him. Even when he misbehaved, she would brush it off. "He's just a child," she would always say in defense. "Nne, we can't always spoil him like this," Okafor said. "He needs discipline." But Nina would shake her head. "Okafor, do you remember how long we waited for this boy? I'm not ready to see him unhappy. Not for a second," Nina said. As Obinna grew older, this pampering began to show in his behavior. He started to think he could do no wrong whenever he got into trouble in school. Nina was quick to defend him without asking questions. When a teacher complained about Obinna's rude behavior, Nina immediately blamed the teacher. "My son is not like that. Nobody should flog my child," she said firmly, as she warned the teachers. Okafor on his end was always busy with work. Nina's love for Obinna overshadowed everything else. In her eyes, he was a miracle child, and she was determined to protect him at all costs, even when he was clearly in the wrong. One sunny afternoon, Okafor and Nina were at home when a phone call disrupted the peace. It was Obinna's school principal again. "Mr. Okafor, good afternoon. There's been an accident," the voice on the other end said. "Your son was involved in a fight." Obinna had broken his classmate's head that day at school. Nina and Okafor hurried to the school, and when they got to the principal's office, there sat Obinna, his arms crossed, with an arrogant look on his face. Beside him was another boy with a bruised lips and a broken head. According to the principal, Obinna had started the fight after the boy refused to lend him a pencil. He insulted the boy's family and threw the first punch. Okafor was furious. "Obinna, is this true?" he asked, his voice sharp. But before Obinna could answer, Nina jumped to his defense. "There must be a mistake," she said, glaring at the principal. "My son doesn't behave like that. Even if he was wrong, he's still a child," she argued. "Why are you making it such a big deal?" Nina said, in defense of Obinna. The principal was shocked and baffled at Nina's response. When he got home that day, Okafor couldn't hold back his frustration any longer. "Nina, this is getting out of hand. You are encouraging him to behave badly. Don't you see what's happening?" "Okafor, you don't understand. We waited so long for this child. I'm not ready to lose him or break his spirit. I will do whatever it takes to make him happy," Nina said. But Okafor simply shook his head, troubled by her words. Meanwhile, Obinna grew bolder. He insulted elders in the community, spoke rudely to relatives, and acted as though respect was beneath him. Each time, Nina made excuses for him. She was blinded by the love she felt for the child she had prayed for. Okafor knew their son was getting out of control, but Nina's refusal to see it left him feeling helpless. A storm was brewing in their home, one that love alone might not be able to calm. The older Obinna grew. The love and pampering he received began to backfire in ways Nina never imagined. The once adult boy who clucked to her skirt was now a teenager with a sharp tongue and a heart full of entitlement. He started with little things, ignoring her instructions, rolling his eyes when she spoke, and muttering under his breath. At first, Nina brushed it off. He's just a teenager, she told herself, but as time went on, his behavior only worsened. One evening, Nina had returned from the market very tired. She called her to Obinna to help her carry the groceries into the kitchen. He barely looked up from his phone while she was speaking to her. "I'm busy, can't you do it yourself?" he snapped. Nina was shocked at how her lovely son responded to her, but Nina tried to keep her calm. "Obinna, I am your mother. Is this how you talk to me?" she asked calmly, but instead of apologizing, he glared at her. "And so, you're always complaining. Just leave me alone." His words hit her like a slap, and tears welled up in her eyes, but she swallowed her heart. She refused to confront or even scold him. "It's just a phase. This too shall pass," she whispered to herself. But it wasn't just a phase. Obinna became more stubborn and grew bolder in disrespect. He would shout at Nina if she questioned him, slam doors when things didn't go his way, and mock her effort to discipline him. "What do you even know?" he barked at his mother during an argument. "You're always nagging me. I'm tired of listening to you." The same child she once cradled and prayed for now treated her like she was nothing. Obinna's behavior grew worse by the day, and with it came new ways to test his parents' patience. Nina started noticing something was wrong when small amounts of money started disappearing from her purse. At first, she thought it was her imagination. "Maybe I miscounted," she told herself. But the missing cash became a pattern. Every time she left her purse unattended, a few naira notes would mysteriously vanish. One day, she caught him red-handed. She had left her purse on the dining table and walked into the kitchen. When she returned, there was Obinna, his hand buried deep inside her bag. "Obinna!" she screamed in shock and anger. He froze for a moment and then pulled out his hand with a smirk. "I just needed some money for something important," he said arrogantly. "So you think stealing from your own mother is okay?" she asked, but he simply shrugged his shoulders and walked away without feeling any remorse. What Obinna called something important was nothing more than gambling with his friends. He had developed a habit of sneaking out to play card games and bet on local football matches. Whenever he won, he would boast to his friends, flashing the stolen money like it was his own hard-earned money. But when he lost, which was often, he would return home with no guilt, ready to steal again. Nina tried confronting him several times, but he always had a clever excuse. "You don't give me pocket money, so what do you expect?" he would argue. Nina tried reasoning with his son. She begged him to stop. "Obinna, this is not the path I want for you. You are better than this," she pleaded. But he laughed in her face. "You are the one who gave me everything I wanted. Now you're acting surprised." Nina stood there shocked and speechless. Obinna's ugly behavior was getting worse, and there was nothing she could do. One fateful afternoon, Obinna strolled into the market with his friends, exuding the arrogance that has become his trademark. They laughed loudly, shoving past people as if the world revolved around them. Near the entrance of the market, an old woman sat quietly on a wooden stool, arranging her tomatoes in a bucket. Her hands were withered from years of hard work. As Obinna passed her stall, he deliberately kicked the bucket, sending her carefully arranged tomatoes tumbling into the dusty ground. The old woman cried. "Ah, my tomatoes!" she cried, her voice trembling with desperation. She turned to Obinna. "My son, why would you do this? Please, help me pick them, or pay me for what you've wasted." But instead of feeling any remorse, Obinna laughed, a loud, heartless sound that cut through the market noise. "Pay you? For what? Your tomatoes aren't even worth anything." His friends burst into laughter as the old woman knelt before him. "Please, my son," she begged, her voice breaking. "This is all I have. Don't do this to me. And if I don't pay, what will you do? Call someone? Go ahead, let's see." He straightened up, looking around at the crowd that had gathered. Murmurs filled the air. "Who raised this boy?" someone whispered. "What kind of heartless behavior is this?" The old woman picked up her scattered tomatoes as best she could in tears. Obinna simply turned his back and strutted away, laughing with his friends as if nothing had happened. The crowd in the market stood in silence. Their faces ached with shock and disgust. The incident spread like wildfire through the village, and the question on everyone's lips was the same. How could a boy, raised by such loving parents, grow into someone so cruel? His parents are good people. Where did he get this gutter behavior from? One fateful morning, Nina was in the kitchen cooking as usual. Okafor had left early for work, and for once, the house was calm. But that calm didn't last long. "Mom, I need money." Obinna's voice rang out as he barged into the kitchen. "Obinna, I have told you there is no money," she replied in a calm but firm tone. She turned back to the pot, hoping the conversation would end there. But Obinna wasn't ready to hear no. "There is always money, Mama. Stop lying," he shouted, his voice growing louder. Nina turned to his face. "Obinna, your father hasn't left me with anything today. You'll have to wait." But her words only fueled his anger. "I'm not waiting for anything," Obinna yelled. "You always have money for yourself, but when it's me, there's no money. Give me the money now." His voice echoed through the house, and before Nina could respond, he grabbed a knife from the counter. "Obinna, don't dare," she warned, her voice trembling, but he was too consumed by his anger to listen. "I said I need money," he screamed, and in a fit of rage, he threw the knife towards her. It happened so fast that neither of them could react in time. The knife pierced Nina's stomach, and she gasped, clutching the wound as she fell to the floor. Blood began pooling beneath her as her breath grew shallow. Obinna stood there frozen, his face pale with shock. "Mama," he whispered, his voice shaking. I didn't mean to." He stammered and dropped to his knees beside her, his hands trembling as tears filled his eyes. Nina lay on the kitchen floor, her eyes floating as she tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come. Obinna didn't know what to do. He only stood there in fear and confusion. His arrogance and anger had turned into pure fear. Okafor returned from work that day to find neighbors gathered outside, their faces filled with sorrow. His heart sank as he pushed through the crowd, only to see Nina's lifeless body being carried out of the house. "What happened?" he screamed, his voice cracking, but no one answered. The weight of the scene was too much for anyone to explain. When Okafor finally saw her lying cold and still, his knees buckled, and he collapsed in a heap of grief. "Nne, please wake up. Please don't leave me," he pleaded, but no amount of words could bring her back. His beautiful and lovely wife was gone, and no amount of tears could bring her back. Meanwhile, Obinna sat in the corner of the house, trembling and pale. The weight of what he had done pressed down on him like a mountain. His mind replayed the scene over and over again. The anger, the knife, the blood, and he wished he could turn back the hands of time, undo everything, and take back his reckless actions. But it was too late. His mother was dead, the one who had loved him unconditionally and shielded him from every consequences. In the following days, Obinna barely spoke. He spent hours sitting alone. He was consumed by guilt and regret. His mother's absence was a constant reminder of his actions, and the reality of what he had done began to sink in. For the first time in his life, he felt sorry and remorseful. After Nina's death, Obinna began to change. He stopped hanging out with his friends, stopped demanding things he didn't deserve, and started listening to his father. He became more respectful to the people around him. He apologized to those he had wronged in the past, even the old woman in the market. And every day, he made an effort to be a better person. He wished he could bring back his mother to life, but the deed was done. His mother was gone and was never going to come back. The moral of this story is taken from the book of Proverbs 22 verse 6, and it says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." This verse of the Bible reminds us that discipline and guidance are just as important as affection in raising a child. Don't love your child too much that you forget to teach them the right thing. If you watched this video to this end, thank you so much for watching. Please support our channel by subscribing and turn on the notification button. Tell me what you think of this story in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and until I bring another amazing story your way, bye.